Allosaurs contain the most giant theropods out of all the major groups, hence why this video contains all definite allosaurians discussed in dinosaur profiles. Enjoy! It is often said that Allosaurus was the largest predator of the late Jurassic period. However, for a long time, it was overshadowed by another large theropod in both North America and Europe. But this year, something changed, and Allosaurus rose to become the largest predatory dinosaur of the Jurassic period. However, it is not only its size that makes Allosaurus so dangerous, but above all, its distribution. So let's unravel the mystery of one of the most successful carnivores of all time and see what really makes this enigma so special. The Allosaurus lived in the late Jurassic period. Definitive fossils of this dinosaur have been found in North America and Portugal. Allosaurus fragilis had an average length of 8.5 meters and weighed 1.7 tons. The highest estimates for the largest definitive Allosaurus fragilis specimen are 9.7 meters in length and between 2 and 3 tons in weight. However, the theropod fossils that previously belonged to the genus Saurophaganax were renamed to Allosaurus anax this year, making Allosaurus a beast weighing 5 tons or more. This makes it highly likely that it is now the largest land predator of the Jurassic period. One of the most distinctive features of Allosaurus was its skull. It was large, massive, and elongated. Allosaurus had a powerful jaw, but it was not designed for biting hard objects, but rather for cutting meat. Its teeth were sharp and serrated to tear flesh effectively. Allosaurus's teeth were replaced regularly, which helped them remain sharp and effective. It also had a short, muscular neck that supported its large head. Its tail was long and slender and helped the dinosaur maintain balance while running and turning. The hind legs of the Allosaurus were long and powerful and much larger than its front legs. Its feet were long and slender with 3 claws on each foot. The Allosaurus's claws were sharp and curved, helping it to grab its prey and possibly also to defend itself. The first Allosaurus fossil was discovered in 1868 by Ferdinand van der Veer Hayden in Colorado. But it was not until 1877 that Othniel Charles Marsh, a famous paleontologist, gave the dinosaur the name Allosaurus. Marsh was one of the leading paleontologists of his time, and he was involved in a fierce rivalry with another paleontologist named Edward Drinker Cope. This rivalry, known as the Bone Wars, led to the discovery and naming of many new dinosaur species, including Allosaurus. Since Marsh's discovery of Allosaurus, many more fossils of this dinosaur have been found. In fact, Allosaurus is one of the most famous and best studied dinosaurs in the world. The Morrison Formation in North America is home to a wealth of dinosaur fossils. This formation also includes some of the largest dinosaurs of the late Jurassic period. The herbivorous dinosaurs in this region generally include sauropods such as Apatosaurus, Barosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Camarasaurus, Diplodocus, and Supersaurus, Thyreophora such as Hesperosaurus and Stegosaurus, and Ornithischia such as Camptosaurus, Nanosaurus, and Dryosaurus. The Morrison Formation was also home to Allosaurus. The flora of this formation was dominated by ferns, cycads, and conifers. The climate was warm and humid, with seasonal monsoons. The Morrison Formation looked like a lush, subtropical floodplain with meandering rivers. Allosaurus species in the Morrison Formation include Allosaurus fragilis, Allosaurus lucasi, Allosaurus jimitseni, and Allosaurus anax, with Allosaurus fragilis being the type species. Although Allosaurus is probably the largest theropod in the Morrison Formation, the presence of several large and medium-sized theropods created a highly competitive ecosystem. In this environment, Allosaurus competed with many other theropods, including Ornitholestes, Ceratosaurus, Marshiosaurus, and Torvosaurus. Although Allosaurus fragilis was significantly larger than Ornitholestes or Marshiosaurus, it was dwarfed by Torvosaurus tanneri, as the Torvosaurus specimen Edmarca rex is estimated to weigh over 5 tons. Only Allosaurus anax could compete with Torvosaurus Edmarca rex. In any case, Allosaurus fragilis and the smaller subspecies of the Allosaurus genus could have hunted ornithischians such as Camptosaurus, Dryosaurus, and Nanosaurus, and possibly even the mighty Stegosaurus here and there. The larger Allosaurus anax and the large specimens of Torvosaurus tanneri were probably already hunting larger prey, namely Stegosaurus and juvenile sauropods. It is possible that the large predators even gathered randomly during the sauropod migrations and isolated an animal from the herd, or simply caused unrest so that one or two brave predators could tear a piece of flesh from the prey. After all, this strategy has already been suggested for the later Mapusaurus. However, there is only one small indication that Allosaurus explicitly hunted sauropods such as Apatosaurus, Camarasaurus, and Diplodocus in any kind of group structure. This is supported by the discovery of over 40 Allosaurus individuals in a bone bed. This is not definitive proof that Allosaurus hunted in this way. It is much more likely that Allosaurus fed on dead sauropods or attacked young animals. Allosaurus was also the most numerous predator in the area, accounting for the majority of the theropod fauna in the Morrison Formation and even being the most common dinosaur in the entire formation. Overall, Allosaurus had completely dominated the late Jurassic period in North America. Its European counterpart, Allosaurus europaeus, on the other hand, inhabited the Lourinhã Formation in Portugal. The Lourinhã Formation was a coastal floodplain during the late Jurassic period. The climate was warm and humid, and the landscape was dominated by forests of ferns, cycads, and conifers. There were also beaches and lagoons along the coast. Dinosaurs in this region included Theriophorans such as Miragaia, Stegosaurus and Dracopelta, sauropods such as Lusotitan and Inherosaurus, and ornithischians such as Draconyx. The more coastal ecosystems of this formation may have consisted of sharks, crocodilomorphs, and turtles. However, in the Lourinhã Formation, Allosaurus europaeus also had to compete with theropods. These include Ceratosaurus, Lourinhãnosaurus, Aviatyrannis, and the massive Torvosaurus gournei. This means that Allosaurus was not the top predator here, and probably only hunted ornithischians such as Draconyx, and here and there Thyreophora such as Miragaia and Dracopelta. In the case of sauropods, on the other hand, it is likely that it hunted young animals, fed on carcasses, or simply nibbled on them, as was the case with the American Allosaurus subspecies. It was important to stay away from Torvosaurus, which was about 3 times as heavy as Allosaurus europaeus. At least it could steal prey from smaller theropods such as Aviatyrannis, Lourinhãnosaurus, and Ceratosaurus. In summary, however, it can still be said that Allosaurus was very numerous, including 5 different species in its genus, which occupied different niches and lived on 2 continents as the top predators of the late Jurassic period.
In the depths of the late Jurassic, there is a giant predator that is obscure to the general public, even to many dinosaur fans. While on land, Torvosaurus, Allosaurus, and for the longest time also Saurophagonax got the attention for being the apex in the Jurassic, there is another theropod that rivals those predators, and that's the Titan of the East. The giant of the East is the Asian equivalent to what was on Saurophagonax or to what is now Allosaurus anax. It is the giant Metriacanthosaurid, Allosauroid, young Schwannosaurus, a predatory behemoth of proportions that are very rare in the Jurassic. In fact, upper estimates put this animal at 11 meters or 36 feet in length, with a weight of 3 metric tons, that goes up to potentially even 4 metric tons. This kind of size is only seen in young Schwannosaurus in Jurassic Asia. In the worldwide comparison of Jurassic apex predators on land, only Torvosaurus tanneri, Torvosaurus gournei, and Allosaurus anax are around the same size or bigger. However, weirdly enough, young Schwannosaurus is barely ever talked about. He's kinda that well-performing, often quiet kid in class that just doesn't care what anyone thinks and still performs. When he or me pulls up in class, it can look something like this.
Huh? Oh, jeez, who's this?
What's up, my niggas?
Oh, did he just say that?
Yeah, hey, man.
Anyways, young Tyrannosaurus is known from paleomedia, namely T-Rex and Evolutionary Journey from 2016, Dinosaur King, and also the video games Ark Survival Evolved and Path of Titans. Comment your favorite display of young Tyrannosaurus and media, and let's get back to paleontology. Young Tyrannosaurus shanghaioensis was named by Dong and colleagues in 1978 and put into the obscure allosaurid group, Metriacanthosauridae, with its name meaning lizard of Yongchuan, referring to the region of discovery. The most notable anatomical trait, aside from the allosaurid traits, is the neural spines. Also, young Tyrannosaurus had a bony ridge on its nose and multiple hornlets and ridges similar to Ceratosaurus. Looks like prior to the evolution of young Tyrannosaurus, a Ceratosaur and an allosaur had too much fun at the Diddy party, resulting in young Tyrannosaurus.
That's rough, buddy.
Young Tyrannosaurus also lived in one of the wildest and otherworldliest dinosaur environments, as this formation was home to some enigmas of prehistoric evolution, including giant theropods with horrendous body posture, small combat theropods, pancake-esque amphibians, and the notorious gigant Spinosaurus, among many more. So stay tuned to find out about these and all the other wild creatures of its habitat. But first we'll have to analyze all the young Tyrannosaurus' traits to see how well it does in its environment. As an allosaurid, young Tyrannosaurus walked on two large muscular legs, had short arms, a strong short neck, an enormous head with powerful jaws and large serrated teeth. Half of its body length, around 5.5 meters or 18 feet, would have been its tail. Because of the general allosaurid skull shape, you guys have been commenting that allosaurids have a better jawline compared to tyrannosaurids, and you know what? I hear it.
You're right. It's fact.
Anyways, young Tyrannosaurus also possessed quite long claws, ideal for constraining smaller prey. Young Tyrannosaurus is the biggest Metriacanthosaur. However, there are other big members too, most notably Raptor, Metriacanthosaurus, and the newly named Alcaracush. As always, get your comments in if I forgot someone here. Anyways, as young Tyrannosaurus is the biggest theropod of its group, it wouldn't be far-fetched to think the man is the apex predator here, or is he? Let's find out. Young Tyrannosaurus was home to China in what is now the Yongchuan area, about 168.3 million years ago, Middle Jurassic, to 145 million years ago, the very end of the Late Jurassic. It also lived in what surely must be the strangest dinosaur formation out there, the Shaxi-Miao Formation of Middle and Late Jurassic China. The Shaxi-Miao Formation does include the temnospondyl, amphibian, Cynobrachiops, the lungfish Ceratodus, the pliosauroid Bichanopliosaurus, the crocodiliforms Sunosuchus and Hesus, both of the goniophyllid family, a rhamphorhynchine pterosaur called Angostina ripteris, some turtles and tritolodontid therapsids, and a whole bunch of dinosaurs, including ornithischians such as the neo-ornithischians Agilisaurus, Gongosaurus, Hexinlusaurus, Xiaosaurus, Yondusaurus, as well as a plethora of stegosaurians including Bashonosaurus, Chialingosaurus, Chunginkosaurus, Hyangiosaurus, Yingshanosaurus, and two Giangosaurus, and most notably Gigant Spinosaurus, which is one of the weirdest named dinosaurs while at the same time making sense too, as giant spiked lizard works well for a dino with giant shoulder spikes. However, while the spikes would have been a problem for most predators in the formation, young Tyrannosaurus would have overpowered this animal in most cases with ease. On the other hand, there are also animals which can't be dominated by the apex predator, and that are of course the sauropods, of which this formation has some true titans. The sauropods of the Shaxi-Miao Formation include Sigongosaurus, Eosulong, the tail-clubbed Shunosaurus, Protognathosaurus, Abrosaurus, Bashonosaurus, Danosaurus, Dashanpusaurus, Tatusaurus, and most notably the popular giants Mamenchisaurus and Omaisaurus. Furthermore, the formation contained several theropods, namely the potentially dubious Giancosaurus, some theropods of uncertain phylogenetic position, namely the Chuandongolurus and Xenocolurus, an indeterminate Lephrosaurin Ceratosaur, the Tetanorain Gasosaurus, the megalosauroid Kaixangosaurus and Leshansaurus, and most importantly the Metriacanthosaurids Xuanhanosaurus, Sejuanosaurus, Raptor, and young Tyrannosaurus. Young Tyrannosaurus grew to be by far the biggest predator in this formation, which is quite a big achievement since there are so many mid-sized and quite big Tetanorain. megalosaurids and metriacanthosaurids contained in Chauximiao. However, young Tyrannosaurus grew so big that it could not just steal prey from all the other predators in the formation generally, but also take on all the Oniphicians, including the Stegosaurs. Aside from thrashing all the Theropods and winning most matches against Oniphicians generally, young Tyrannosaurus could also take on some Sauropods, including the weirdly wonderful tail-clubbed Tyrannosaurus, which could grow to 3 metric tons. Young Tyrannosaurus definitely wouldn't suck as bad in a match as the Raptor in Dinosaur Evolution.
What the hell? Oh my god, no way.
All in all, young Tyrannosaurus was the greatest predator of Jurassic Asia, a titan that is not talked about enough, a highly strange and enormously powerful theropod. He truly was the king of the most bizarre dinosaur environment.
Giganotosaurus is often portrayed as the big and bad antagonist to the giant Titanosaur Argentinosaurus, even though these two did not even live together. In fact, Argentinosaurus had bigger problems than Giganotosaurus, as there is multiple giant killers aka carcharodontosaurids in the Huincul Formation of Patagonia. While in specialist circles Mapusaurus gets the spotlight most of the time, there is another fellow carcharodontosaurid that would and could have been its biggest rival when it comes to hunting big game in the formation. However, this theropod has a much more badass and epic vibe to it than Mapusaurus, as it is called the bull hunter. Taurovenata is a giant carcharodontosaur from the Cretaceous Huincul Formation of Argentina. It is a member of the group of the most elite big game hunters of all time, but we'll get to that later, so stay tuned to not miss that. Taurovenata violantei was first described in 2016 and named the bull hunter of Violante, with the species epithet originating from the Violante farm in the lower Huincul Formation and the genus name from the Latin words tauros for bull and venator for hunter. It was dated to the Cenomanian of the late Cretaceous, specifically from about 95 million years ago to 93.9 million years ago. Conservative estimates put Taurovenator at 5.7 metric tons. Slightly bigger than the upper estimates of another giant carcharodontosaur of this formation, but just a bit smaller than the real apex predator of the formation. You heard right, Taurovenator may not be the biggest predator in the region or formation, as it could have lived alongside the giant Mapusaurus. However, while being smaller than Mapusaurus, it was bigger than the Meraxis gigas, another carcharodontosaurid with some estimates around 5 metric tons. These three belong to a group of South American carcharodontosaurids called Giganotosaurines or Giganotosaurini. The Giganotosaurs are the most well-adapted giant killers that ever evolved on land, as all of them are not only giants but also had stupidly muscular legs to carry their weight, short but muscular forelimbs that ended in sharp claws, gigantic skulls and razor-sharp, highly serrated teeth that housed cutting edges to slice and dice. Giganotosaurini include the type member Giganotosaurus carolini, as well as Tyrannotitan chubutensis, Mapusaurus roseae, Taurovenator violante, and since 2022 also Meraxis gigas. This is the subgroup with the highest numbers of megatheropods, aka theropods, that exceed 5 metric tons in weight, and Taurovenator might have been one of the very biggest, being comparable to Acrocanthosaurus attocensis in size. However, Taurovenata wasn't just similar to Acrocanthosaurus in weight, but also in neural spine development, as its neural spines are imbricated, meaning the cervical vertebrae would have interlocked with each other. The authors also described this morphology as a cervical complex and likened it to overlapping roof tiles. Taurovenata's paleoenvironment would have been filled with some superlatives of the Cretaceous period, including giant theropods and truly colossal sauropods. It should be said here that some researchers believe that Mapusaurus lived later than Taurovenata, meaning they never actually coexisted, even though they are known from the same formation. Taurovenator would have lived alongside just Meraxis if that is the case. However, even if Mapusaurus and Taurovenator didn't coexist, the vast territories required by such massive predators such as Meraxis, Mapusaurus and Taurovenator raise questions about whether an entire continent, never mind a formation, could support multiple species simultaneously. Add the fact that carcharodontosaurs died out about 90 million years ago, and one might wanna think these guys just overate, killing all the sauropods in their environment and dying out of hunger and cannibalism, allowing for smaller predators such as allosaurs, megaraptorans and dromaeosaurs to take over the newly available theropod niches. Having said this, it should be mentioned that it was mostly sauropods and their giant carcasses that sustained this formation of giant killers for millions of years. So now the question arises, what animals actually lived in the Huincul Formation other than the 3 giganotosaurs? Well, the Huincul Formation does include vertebrate paleofauna from the late Cenomanian period, 97 million years ago, and the Turonian period, which spans from about 93.9 million years ago to 89.8 million years ago. The formation is known mostly for dinosaurs, including the Ornithischian Chakisaurus, the sauropods such as the Rebakisaurid Diplodocoid Limaesaurus, Cedasaura and the Cathartisaura, as well as the Titanosaurians Chucarosaurus, Bastingori Titan, Choconsaurus, and the Titanic Argentinosaurus, which is the biggest officially described dinosaur that ever lived in the Huincul Formation, also sometimes referred to the Land of Giants due to the adequately named episode of Chased by Dinosaurs. Considering the fact that this formation was home to 7 different sauropod genuses, whom one of them is still the biggest officially described dinosaur for many out there, it is abundantly and evidently clear why this formation can support such massive predators as Mapusaurus, Meraxes and Taurovenator. But what about the smaller theropods? Aside from the 3 carcharodontosaurids, the Patagonian Huincul Formation also includes the Auniraptor, of whom we still don't know its exact group, the potential Coelurosaurian Gualicho, the Abelisaurids Ilocalesia, Tralcasaurus and the well-known Scorpiovenator, as well as the Maniraptor and Ovaroraptor. Further reptiles of the formation are the turtle Prochelidella, the Rhinchocephalians Caecaphylosaurus and Patagosphenos. It is clear that Taurovenator is either the apex predator or the second apex predator within its environment, depending if it coexisted with Mapusaurus or not. Taurovenator is a theropod big enough to hunt juvenile sauropods, snack on adult sauropods and hunt, as well as steal prey from every other theropod if it wanted to. However, the carcharodontosaurid dominance shouldn't last forever, as they went extinct by the end of the Turonian period about 90 million years ago, meaning the bull hunter also blessed the temporal. It was one of the last giant carnosaurs, a brilliantly sailed and weirdly ginormous predator of Cretaceous Patagonia. Imagine your Taurovenator. It doesn't matter what or whoever bothers you, you'll just...
Carnosaurs had the biggest amount of megatheropods out of all the theropod groups. In general, the bigger carnosaurs were mainly carcharodontosaurians, and within this group, the carcharodontosaurids. One of them lived in the Chemchem group alongside Africa's 2 biggest theropods. A wild environment, yet it still managed to grow to a massive size. How did he do it? At a glance, I have no idea, so let's find out. Big T, start the show. This carcharodontosaurian is a highly fragmentary, potentially dubious but giant theropod of North Africa. This is the Sauroneops. Sauroneops was named by Andrea Ciao, Marco Della Vecchia and Matteo Fabri in 2012. Its full name Sauroneops means Sauron's eye, after the villain Sauron from Lord of the Rings, with the species name Pachytolus, consisting of patches, thick, and pholus, round building with conical roof, in reference to the thick, vaulted skull roof. The holotype consists of a fragment just above the eye socket. This material, however, is distinct from any other known theropod of the time and location and displays enlargement of the bone growth, something that may have been the underlying support for an eye crest display. The exact size of Sauroneops is impossible to establish with absolute certainty, but it was in all likelihood a large theropod. This idea is based upon the comparison of the Sauroneops' bone fragment with other more complete relatives, as well as the simple fact that some of its relatives, such as Carcharodontosaurus, Acrocanthosaurus and so on, are giants. Conservative estimates for its size are a length of 9 to 10 meters or 30 to 33 feet and a weight anywhere from 4 to 6 metric tons. Sauroneops lived about 100 million years ago in North Africa, and the predators it coexisted with were no joke. The Chemchem formation or Chemchem group around this time really had 5 megatheropod contenders, aka theropods that could reach a size of 5 metric tons or more. These include the Sauroneops, Spinosaurus, Baryosaurus/Deltadromeus, the Osteoporosia, and the king himself, Carcharodontosaurus. Big theropods such as these can only live with each other due to niche partitioning and their unique anatomical specializations. Smaller theropods include noosaurids, dromaeosaurids and abelisauриds. These guys could have made prey, and the Sauroneops could have gate-crashed their meal and take the prey from them, because of its giant size. That's what I call brutally effective. And you know, Sauroneops wouldn't have had a problem taking on juvenile or young sauropods or a nonithopod either. While ambushes would have been the primary hunting tool for smaller and or faster and swifter prey, flash grazing on sauropods is definitely possible for Sauroneops, as it is of course a big carcharodontosaur. Flash grazing, however, would only be a secondary hunting tactic at best and might have only been applied when an unorganized group goes on a rampage to make some food. For example, the Mapusaurus gang in Planet Dinosaur. Speaking of the herbivores Sauroneops could have hunted, these include an indeterminate ankylosaur and nonithopod, sauropods such as the diplodocoid Rebbachisaurus, and further indeterminate sauropod specimens, with at least one of them being a titanosaur. Furthermore, the formation also includes tapicharid and ashtacoid pterosaurs, cartilaginous fish such as Onchopristis, ray-finned fish such as Calamopleurus, lobe-finned fish such as Neoceratodus, some amphibians including frogs, some lizards and snakes including an indeterminate matzoid. By the way, this group being the biggest carnivorous snakes of all time, the plesiosaur Leptocleidos, turtles such as Gallionemus, and crocodilomorphs such as Arorhipisuchus, Laganosuchus, and Lavocatchampsa. Sauroneops would have had a mid to upper end position in the food chain, which is insane considering the predators in the region. Sauroneops has been dated to the Cenomanian of the Cretaceous, meaning it could have died out with the Carcharodontosaurus and Spinosaurus, as the Cenomanian-Turonian boundary was pretty much the end for these theropod groups. And so this was also the end for Sauron's eye.
Alright, let's see what this is about. Where the is everyone?
During the Cretaceous period, large carnivorous dinosaurs were widespread. Many of them came from South America, more specifically Argentina. In fact, Argentina has its own family of megatheropods, the Giganotosaurines. These were some of the largest theropods to ever exist. Today we will talk about the earliest member of what is the most elite group of land carnivores ever. In 2005, researchers uncovered a new Giganotosaurini family member in Argentina, relying on just 2 incomplete specimens and numerous isolated teeth for documentation. Its name, Tyrannotitan, the Tyrant Titan. Tyrannotitan could grow up to 13 meters or 42.6 feet in length and weigh over 7 metric tons. This fearsome predator thrived during the early Cretaceous period. Contrary to its name, Tyrannotitan did not share close genetic ties with the Tyrannosaurus. Instead, it found its place within the Giganotosaurines, as already discussed. The Giganotosaurines are a subgroup of the Carcharodontosauridae family, which in case is a subgroup of the Carcharodontosauria. Speaking about size, Tyrannotitan even stands out among Carcharodontosaurians, outsizing almost all of them. Other large Carcharodontosaurians include Carcharodontosaurus, Acrocanthosaurus, Giganotosaurus, Mapusaurus, Meraxes, Giganotosaurus, Mapusaurus, Tyrannotitan and Meraxes from the smaller clade known as Giganotosaurini. These 4 predators ranged anywhere from 4 to over 8 metric tons in weight, making it the most elite subgroup of theropods ever. The vast territories required by such massive predators raised questions about whether an entire continent could support multiple species simultaneously. Thus, it's plausible that Tyrannotitan represents a unique lineage that evolved over millions of years, as the most ancient and foundational member of Giganotosaurini. Tyrannotitan might have even served as the direct ancestor to its later kin. In most regards, Tyrannotitan shared common traits with other large carcharodontosaurs, but possessed its own distinct characteristics. Carcharodontosaurs were notable for their deep skulls, which were proportionally larger compared to other theropod clades. Unlike the robust skulls of the tyrannosaurines, carcharodontosaurs had thinner, less sturdy skulls. However, their teeth compensated for this with a broad profile from the side and thin from the front, equipped with serrations ideal for slicing through flesh. Tyrannotitan in particular sported thicker and straighter teeth. While most Gigantosaurini members had pneumatic or hollow vertebrae in their hips and tails to reduce weight, Tyrannotitan lacked this feature, rendering its tail comparatively heavier. The neural spines on its tail vertebrae were notably taller, possibly to support the larger muscles needed for its quite weighty tail. Tyrannotitan featured very small arms compared to the other Gigantosaurini members, while appearing to exhibit stronger musculature. However, its primary hunting tools obviously remained its teeth. While small sauropods and juveniles of larger species posed minimal challenge to most large theropods, Tyrannotitan coexisted with Patagotitan. This behemoth is estimated to weigh a staggering 55 metric tons. Adult Patagotitan would have been an imposing adversary for most carnivores, including Tyrannotitan. Yet carcharodontosaurs seem to specialize in hunting such massive prey. Flesh grazing would have been the best way to hunt here if the Tyrannotitan ever dared to attack an adult Patagotitan. However, there's a slight possibility that Tyrannotitan hunted in packs or much more likely unorganized groups. This assumption comes from the discovery of at least 7 individuals of the relative Mapusaurus from a bone bed. However, an animal the size and strength of Tyrannotitan was already a formidable force on its own. In the case of hunting in solitude, Tyrannotitan would focus on targeting young and juvenile sauropods. During Tyrannotitan's existence, Argentina was characterized by a moist, flooded plain. Apart from Patagotitan, our knowledge of the contemporary fauna alongside Tyrannotitan remains limited. The few other species identified include smaller sauropods, the primitive Ceratosaur Geniodectes, and terrestrial crocodile ancestors known as Peirosaurids. Yet, this time period was ruled by the Tyrannotitan, who was one of the largest and strongest theropods ever, and his legacy should last for many more million years, as he started the age of the most elite club of megapredators ever. When talking about the largest and most dangerous theropods in North America, tyrannosaurs are usually mentioned. But what existed before T-Rex, Dynamoptera, or Albertosaurus? The answer is carcharodontosaurs. These descendants of the allosaurs appeared in the late Jurassic period and dominated the world until the late Cretaceous period. And coincidentally, the second largest predator in North America was also a carcharodontosaur. We are talking about Acrocanthosaurus, the high-spined lizard. Acrocanthosaurus was the largest carcharodontosaurid in North America. Acrocanthosaurus atucansis is the only species, and thus the type species of Acrocanthosaurus. Acrocanthosaurus was a generic carcharodontosaurid, meaning it was more closely related to basal carcharodontosaurids than to representatives of subgroups such as the Gigantosaurini. Acrocanthosaurus was described in the 1950s by John Willis Stovall and Juan Langston Jr. The name Acrocanthosaurus means high-spined lizard, which refers to a possible sail or hump on its back that could have been up to 50 centimeters high. It reached a length of up to 11.5 meters and a weight of approximately 6.3 tons excluding the sail or hump. A model with a sail weighed just under 7.5 tons, and one with a hump weighed about 8.3 tons. This new scaling method for calculating the weight of dinosaurs specializes in reconstructing and calculating soft tissue, especially skin, resulting in these new gigantic sizes. Acrocanthosaurus is therefore currently the second largest land predator in the history of North America. Only the genus Tyrannosaurus had more body mass among the North American megatheropods. Furthermore, Acrocanthosaurus stands out from other theropods with its sail or hump. This structure could extend from the neck to the tip of the tail. However, the purpose of this feature is still the subject of much debate. One theory suggests that the hump of Acrocanthosaurus increased its body surface area, which may have contributed to heat regulation. Another possibility is that it served as additional fat storage, allowing Acrocanthosaurus to go without food for longer periods of time. It is even possible that the hump had multiple functions. If the hump was indeed made of fat, a larger hump could indicate that an Acrocanthosaurus was a successful predator that consumed more than just the bare minimum and was also genetically better predisposed than a specimen with a smaller hump. This could be an advantage in attracting mates. The hump may also have played a role in dominant struggles between two Acrocanthosaurus, with a larger hump indicating a more capable hunter who knows what to do in a fight. An Acrocanthosaurus with a smaller hump might have been more likely to back down rather than face a seemingly stronger and more capable opponent. Acrocanthosaurus' skull was up to 1.3 meters long. It had skull windows to reduce the weight of the skull. Acrocanthosaurus' main hunting tool were its curved and sharp teeth, similar to those of other carcharodontosaurs. The upper jaw and premaxilla contained a total of 38 teeth. The teeth of the lower jaw were generally smaller than those of the upper jaw and could number up to 30. Another characteristic of carcharodontosaurs is the bony crest above the eye, which is formed by the fusion of the lacrimal and postorbital bones. Computer reconstructions suggest that Acro's typical head posture was about -25 degrees, which could give the impression that Acrocanthosaurus looked down while walking. A front limb of Acrocanthosaurus was also reconstructed, revealing that there was a considerable amount of cartilage between the bones. The reason for this is that the bones alone could not form perfect joints, so additional cartilage was needed to properly form the limbs. The arms of Acrocanthosaurus were not very mobile, they could not be fully extended or bent sharply. However, it could pull its upper arm back relatively far as if pulling something toward its chest. Acrocanthosaurus had 3 fingers at the end of its arms, with the first and second claw probably permanently bent. The third and smallest claw may have been retractable. For smaller prey such as iguanodontids, these arms were probably ideal for holding the victim and then inflicting further damage with the head. As is common with large theropods, the forearms of Acrocanthosaurus could not be rotated like a human arm, as they were naturally turned inward. Acrocanthosaurus lived mainly in what are now the US states of Oklahoma, Texas, Wyoming, and possibly Maryland. In Texas, Acrocanthosaurus lived in floodplains and along the coast, as Texas was partially flooded at that time. Due to its wide distribution, it coexisted with many other creatures, including some well-known dinosaurs such as Sauropelta, Deinonychus, Tenontosaurus, sauropods such as Astrodon and Sauroposeidon, various iguanodonts and oviraptors. In addition to dinosaurs, it lived alongside crocodile relatives called Neosuchia, mammals, fish, lizards, and turtles. Considering the size of the animals, especially the carnivores, none could match Acrocanthosaurus, confirming that it was the top predator. This allowed it to hunt many different prey animals, including ornithopods, ankylosaurs, and even sauropods. Sauropods such as Astrodon, ankylosaurs such as Sauropelta, and ornithopods such as Tenontosaurus may have been on the menu. There is even evidence that Acrocanthosaurus hunted sauropods. This evidence comes from bite marks on sauropod bones that have been attributed to Acrocanthosaurus specimens. It is believed that it hunted Astrodon in particular, and perhaps even the giant Sauroposeidon. It probably targeted weak and younger specimens of these sauropods. But how did it hunt sauropods? Its jaw may provide an answer, as it was equipped with dagger-like, serrated and curved teeth that were perfectly suited for cutting deep into flesh. It also had a powerful bite. According to one study, Acrocanthosaurus could exert a maximum bite force of 16,900 newtons, perhaps even more with the new size estimates. However, the exact method by which Acrocanthosaurus used its mouth, feet, and arms when hunting remains uncertain, leading to various theories about its hunting strategy. The most widely accepted method at present is that Acrocanthosaurus first attacked with its head, using its massive jaws to hold onto its prey, and then used its claws to prevent the prey from escaping. It is also believed that Acrocanthosaurus pulled medium-sized prey toward its body with its arms, while for larger prey it pulled itself closer to the victim with its arms and inflicted fatal bites. And as if all that wasn't enough, it is possible that Acrocanthosaurus, like many other allosaurs, occasionally hunted in unorganized gangs, perhaps in packs. This assumption is based on the famous Glen Rose trackway, which contains dinosaur footprints. These footprints suggest that several theropods were pursuing 12 sauropods. It is believed that these theropods were Acrocanthosaurus specimens. It is therefore very likely that they hunted together, but not all paleontologists are convinced. Some point out that none of the sauropod footprints overlap, indicating no signs of a change in speed that would be expected in sauropods that are being pursued. However, even if Acrocanthosaurus was not a group hunter, it was exceptionally good at attacking prey that was larger than itself. Acrocanthosaurus was the dominant predatory dinosaur during the middle and late stages of the Lower Cretaceous period in North America. It is believed that, due to the size difference, even Deinonychus, the terrible claw, posed little threat to Acrocanthosaurus. No carnivorous creature could compete with Acrocanthosaurus back then. Nevertheless, it disappeared before the beginning of the late Cretaceous period. Why did such a specialized animal become extinct? As is often the case with highly adapted predators, even minor environmental changes or the extinction of suitable prey can bring a species to the brink of extinction. Unfortunately, we do not know exactly what happened. It is a shame that Acrocanthosaurus never encountered Tyrannosaurus, as it would have been interesting to see how the two largest predators in North America would have interacted with each other. We often talk about the largest theropods in North America or South America. However, there was another continent with giant theropods, and that was Africa. And today we will talk about one of these African giants, namely Carcharodontosaurus, the shark-toothed lizard. Carcharodontosaurus saharicus stood at the top of the food chain in North Africa during the late Cretaceous period. It lived in the Cenomanian stage of the Cretaceous in Algeria, Morocco, Egypt, Niger, and Tunisia. Carcharodontosaurus was the type member and namesake of the Carcharodontosauridae family, the most well-known subgroup of Allosauridae. They evolved into the biggest predators of all time. By biggest, we mean the number of heavyweight Carcharodontosaurs in the main group and subgroups like the Gigantosaurini. In this regard, other dinosaur groups like Tyrannosaurids or Spinosaurids couldn't compete, and since Carcharodontosaurus was the namesake of its family, it must have been quite impressive. Carcharodontosaurus was first described in 1925 as Megalosaurus saharicus. At that time, many theropods were mistakenly identified as Megalosaurus. In 1931, the German paleontologist Ernst Stromer redescribed the predator as Carcharodontosaurus saharicus. Unfortunately, the fossilized bones of Carcharodontosaurus were destroyed during the bombing of Munich in World War II in 1944. Furthermore, the original Carcharodontosaurus specimen was renamed to Raptor in 2025. Fortunately, the American paleontologist Paul Sereno discovered another specimen of Carcharodontosaurus in Morocco. Its skull was longer but also narrower and less robust compared to that of Tyrannosaurus. Carcharodontosaurus was a predator that killed its prey not by bone crushing like the T-Rex, but by using its razor-sharp teeth. Carcharodontosaurus reached a length of 12 meters or 39 feet and weighed over 6 metric tons. What also distinguished Carcharodontosaurids from Tyrannosaurids were their longer and presumably more useful arms. However, its most significant weapon was its teeth, of which it had about 32. Its relatively weak bite force was compensated by its sharp teeth. These teeth were so sharp that a bite from Carcharodontosaurus would cause a gaping wound, leading to fatal blood loss for its prey. In other words, Carcharodontosaurus could slice through almost anything that got between its teeth. Paleontologists believed that Carcharodontosaurus's hunting strategy involved pursuing its prey. It would ambush its prey, chase it down, and ideally deliver a bite. A bite from Carcharodontosaurus would leave a gaping wound, causing aggressive bleeding, shocking the prey and make it drop quickly. Among its likely prey was Uranosaurus, a type of Iguanodontia that could move on both 2 and 4 legs. Uranosaurus reached a length of 7 to 8 meters or 23 to 26 feet and a weight of 2.2 metric tons. Size-wise, it was probably the ideal target for Carcharodontosaurus. Now we've heard about dinosaurs that were prey for Carcharodontosaurus, but who could compete with it? Spinosaurus could be one answer, since fossils of both Spino and Carcharodontosaurus have been found in Morocco. However, these predators probably avoided each other and did not engage in direct conflict because they occupied different niches. Spinosaurus was likely a river hunter, while Carcharodontosaurus was a fully terrestrial hunter. Nonetheless, these two predators alone made this ecosystem one of the most dangerous of all time. There were also many mid-sized theropods like Rugops primus, the Chemchem abelisaur, Deltadromeus, and Sauroniops. The largest dinosaur in the area was probably Paralititan. Paralititan means titan of the tidal zone. The species epithet Stromeri comes from the well-known paleontologist Ernst Stromer. This 26-meter or 85.6 feet long titan belonged to the Titanosauria family. Paralititan could weigh up to 59 metric tons. Adult and healthy Paralititan were probably never hunted by any theropod. Several Carcharodontosaurs, namely Mapusaurs, have been found in one place, suggesting that at least some could have hunted in packs or more likely unorganized groups. Flesh grazing would have likely been the most common hunting method when taking on sauropods. It's not impossible that carcharodontosaurs hunted sauropods in unorganized groups. However, it's always hard to tell when you don't have definitive evidence. Carcharodontosaurus was one of the most dangerous dinosaurs of all time and the top predator in its ecosystem during the Cenomanian stage of the Cretaceous. Until this era, tyrannosaurs never or rarely reached sizes much larger than an average raptor, while carcharodontosaurs often reached lengths comparable to a minibus. Many paleontologists believe that the extinction of carcharodontosaurs in North America allowed tyrannosaurs to thrive, grow impressively large, and fill ecological niches. This is a theory about what might have happened and about the consequences after Carcharodontosaurus and his family members went extinct. However, we don't have precise evidence of this. Carcharodontosaurus ruled North Africa in the Cenomanian stage of the Cretaceous and was a predator that left a legacy like few others. Nevertheless, even the great Carch eventually became extinct. Titanosaurs were the dominant group of herbivores in Cretaceous Argentina. One of the largest and most famous was Argentinosaurus. No predator could take down this giant, right? Wrong, because large herbivores were only taken down by large carnivores, and this hunter was not only big and deadly, but could have also been a pack hunter. I'm talking about Mapusaurus. Mapusaurus rosei was 10.2 to 12.6 meters or 33.5 to 41 feet long, potentially even longer. This carnivore is a member of the Carcharodontosauridae family. Its name, Mapusaurus, means earth lizard. It was a member of the Gigantosaurini subgroup, which dominated the Cretaceous period of Patagonia between stages of the Lower and Late Cretaceous period. Described in 2006 by the renowned paleontologists Rodolfo Coria and Phil Curry, Mapusaurus was one of the most powerful predators ever to roam South America. Coming in with an average weight of over 5 metric tons and a staggering 7.5 metric tons at its maximum estimate, Mapusaurus was a massive predator and was one of the biggest carcharodontosaurids and apex predators of its time. A major difference between Mapusaurus and the tyrannosaurid T-Rex was the shape of their teeth. T-Rex had smooth, conical teeth that were adapted to breaking bones. Mapusaurus, on the other hand, had flat, curved teeth to cut through flesh. A T-Rex would never have been able to bite through the bones of a massive sauropod because they were simply too large. Conversely, Mapusaurus could hunt large prey more effectively because its teeth let it cut through flesh easily. Mapusaurus's skull was around 1.5 meters or 5 feet long. Its teeth were ideal for cutting through flesh, being shark-like and razor-sharp. One bite of a Mapusaurus would leave a gaping wound on its prey. In addition, it is believed that this animal may have lived and even hunted in packs, as a group of 9 Mapusaurus were identified in a bone bed. These Mapusaurus ranged in length from 5 to over 12 meters or 16 to over 39 feet and were of juvenile and adult age. There is no certain evidence that suggests group hunting behavior in megatheropods such as Mapusaurus. However, it might be that these predators hunted in unorganized groups just to make some food and benefit from each other. So, the question remains, if Mapusaurus hunted in packs, what would it hunt? A pack, a family, or even an unorganized group of these predators would of course need an environment with an abundance of meat. Then look no further than Patagonia in the Huincul Formation of the Cenomanian stage in the Cretaceous. These lands were once the home of the giant Argentinosaurus huinculensis. This titanosaur is the largest officially described dinosaur to this date, with estimates between 30 and 35 meters or 98 to 115 feet in length, and a weight of around 75 metric tons, an average height of 6 meters or 20 feet. This sauropod was a colossus among giants. Like other sauropods, it lived in herds. The only way to hunt this giant from the eyes of Mapusaurus would be to attack or separate a young, old, or sick Argentinosaurus from the herd and repeatedly inflict damage on it over time. Mapusaurus might also have used the flesh grazing strategy, chunking out big pieces of its victim's flesh just to still hunger and not needing to kill the animal itself. Even if a group of Mapusaurus were to attack an Argentinosaurus, they still would have to watch out not to be buried underneath its body, as the Argentinosaurus was about 10 times as heavy. The habitat of the Mapusaurus, northern Patagonia, was a harsh and hot environment at the time and therefore not easy terrain. The only cooling was probably seasonal streams and creeks. Because of this, taking down large prey would make even more sense, since it was already tiring to hunt under such conditions and because one could feed for quite a while on a large carcass. In addition to Argentinosaurus, there were other smaller sauropods such as Choconsaurus and various hadrosaurs. Theropods that lived alongside Mapusaurus were the abelisaurid Scorpiovenator and possibly the apex predator Meraxes. However, it is not yet certain whether this fellow family member of the Gigantosaurini lived alongside Mapusaurus. The flora of this habitat was rich in hornwort, buttercups, ferns, conifers, and flowering plants. The richer fauna, on the other hand, was more likely to be found near seasonal streams and in the water. Amphibians, fish, turtles, reptiles, sphenodontians, and crocodiles have already been found in this formation. But the top of the food chain in this country was Mapusaurus. Mapusaurus has also earned a little more respect, as it was the main predator of the Walking with Dinosaurs special from the episode Land of Giants. Some still believe that this predator was the Giganotosaurus. However, Nigel Marven admitted that it was Mapusaurus and not Giganotosaurus that was meant. Therefore, more respect for the Mapusaurus, which dominated Patagonia at its time and region.
That's it for this video. Smash the thumbs up, the bell and the subscribe, as only legends do that, and I know you all are. For more Megaraptor, there is also the German channel. Also check out Instagram for fitness motivation and inspiration, as I'm on a mission to help more people get fit. Furthermore, you can also check out Twitter to hear my thoughts on all kinds of dinosaur stuff. And with that, I wish you a splendid day or evening. Goodbye.